Hello, welcome back. So in the last video tutorial on this series, we were able to push some to-dos, okay, into our um let's say to do one, and then we were able to push it into our list view, okay. So that was working perfectly fine, okay. So if you remember, this is the list view, okay, and this list view is different. This list view is for when we click on let me just go back and quickly refresh. Okay, that's when we click on a task and then it takes us to the task page. Okay, that is when we see the to-dos for that particular task. So when I click on it, okay, you see that we have that list of to do showing there. Okay, this is the list view for that, and then this list view is for when we are adding new tasks and then we want to add the to do's. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Okay, that's why I have this here to check if the tax ID is not known. So if this is not known, that means the person has clicked on the tax and he wants to what view or edit the tax. So that's basically what we did. Okay, so now this time you see that we are able to push into the list, but how are we going to send it into the database? Okay, you know that when we are pushing to do into the system, okay, we also need the the tax ID. So how are we going to get that? Because now that we have this here, we are pushing this. The moment the person enter and then we push it inside, we are not going to even get what the we are not even going to get the ID for that, because at that time we've not even pushed the tax, okay, into the database. So how are we going to solve this problem? So I was thinking about this and then I was like, okay, why don't we use a list of string here, okay? And then when we are done and then we click on this button, we will go through the list and then create the to do objects instead of trying to create the objects here, okay? So this is what I mean. When I come up here, you see we have this thing here. So what I will do is I will comment this line, okay, so that I'll get the errors and then I can trace where I have to go next. So this time I want to create a list of what strings, okay, and I want to say string will be what to do info, okay. So this is the to do infos, okay, and then when I come down here where I have the errors here, this time I'm not going to let's say where is the I think this one here. This time here, I'm not going to create the object like this, okay? I'm not going to create the object like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just add the string that we get, okay, into the list of to-dos info, okay? So I will comment this line of code here and I'll call the to-do infos, and this time I'm just adding a string which is the value, okay? So we have the error gone, but we have to fix this. Okay, so now when we come here to, we know that we are displaying what the to-dos here. Okay, if you check carefully, you realize that we only need what the to-do info here. We don't need any extra thing there. So that means it's good to what use the what. It's okay to use the to-do infos that we have here. Okay, so I will just come back to where the error is, and this time I also use the to-do infos. The thing the what I'm trying to do here is just simply changing it from the list of to do to what list of string. Okay, so I will say to do infos, and this time I don't need any in the I don't need anything like this. Okay, now when I save it, I'm just going back. You see, when I save it, this is because if when it reloads, it just take everything out, but that is okay. When you run the app and then you install it, it won't have this error. So I'll go back here, and this time I'll enter. Let me just come here, and I'll enter some to do here, and then when I click on done, it goes into the list, and that's okay. I can have another to do, and then and I click it goes. So we are still having the same functionality as before, but then we've changed it from what a list of to dos and then into this. The reason I did this is because I want to get the ID for the tax sorry the to do object before I push it into the database. So it's very necessary because what we did previously, we were not having the tax ID there, and that would cause some problems. Okay, so now when do we submit the thing? That's when we click on this. Okay, now when we click on this, we can now here we push this mandator to send into the tax. Okay, into the add tax, and then we are able to push. Okay, but we know that we are not going to do the same thing. We are not going to push the tax sorry the to do's into the tax. Okay, so that means we have to get a function for what add tax add to do. So I'll come here and then I'll copy the same thing here. We've not written the PHP code for that, but then let's just do this. Okay, and then this time we are going to say add to do's. So just the same approach. The only thing that we are going to change will be the URL here. Okay, so I'll save it now, and what I'm going to do is I'll go into my PHP code here, and this time we have to add a code for adding the to do. Okay, so I'll save it and then I'll say add to do.php, and then I'll save. I'll copy the similar code here. Where is it? Add tags. Copy the code here, and then when I come here, I'm going to paste it. So this time we are going to add just the to do info here. Okay, so when we are passing it from the app, we have to name it as to do info. Okay, to do info, and I will change this to do info, and I will delete this one because we don't even need the to do info. But yeah, we need the tax ID, so I can use this for the tax ID, and I will also need it here, tax ID. So now we have this. That's okay. Now we want to insert into what to do, where we need what the tax ID. I think I named it as tax ID in the database query. So let's go back. So I have the tax ID and I also have the to do info. That's correct. So tax ID and then to do info. Okay. So here will be what tax ID, and then here will be the to do info. Okay. So I think the query will work. Okay, and then we will have a success message and all that. So you just change adding to do was was okay, and then adding to do failed here. So I think for now this query should work. Okay, we can do a quick check on this using the postman. Okay, when I come here this time we are saying add to do, and we don't need a title, we need a tax ID, and then we need what the to do info. Okay, so the tax ID, let's assume that this is tax of, let's say, let me check the database before I make some error. So come here, I have tax IDs 1 to 5, so I will say tax ID 32. Okay, so I'll put 32 here. I'll put, sorry, there, I'll put 32 here, and then I'll say complete all the files at work, something like that. And this time I want to do what send, and let's see, we get a success message which say adding to do was successful. So let's check the database and see. So when I come here, you can see complete all the files at work. So that means our simple PHP API is working fine. So now how do we use it in the app? Now when we come here, we know that we have this. Okay, I'll just copy, or it's just the same thing, so I'll just change it from just to do. Okay, so that's the same thing, and then we are going to get a response. So we are not going to change anything here. Now let's go back to the task page. When we click on submit here, okay, we are trying to submit something to what the database. First we want to submit what the tax, and we only get what the ID if the tax has been added. That's when we get to know that, oh, this this tax is having an ID of, let's say, 37 or 40. It is only when we send it into the database that's when we know the ID. So that means when we add the tax, we have to find a way to also retrieve what the ID. Okay, so in your API, you do something like you do something like in your API here. Let me go into the tax here. Okay, after inserting this into the database, okay, we also have to make a new query to get the ID. Okay, so one thing that I can do here, since this is not really based on APIs, I'm just going to write something simple. But like I said in previous video, you don't have to do this. This is a very, very, very simple API that you don't have to do this for your big applications. Okay, so I will just copy this line of code here. Okay, let me just write it new. Okay, so I will say let's say tax ID query. I'll name it this way, and then I'll say select all from tax where the title, okay, the title is what is equal to the title that we receive. Okay, the reason is when we push into the database now the database has the title of what the title that we have. Okay, and then we have the tax ID query. Okay, so we can also go ahead and then do let me do task. Let me just name it task SQLi query. Sorry. And then I can call this one tax query rather. So I'll do my SQLi query, and then I can check the connection, and then I'll do what tax I tax SQL query. So I have this here. That is okay. I have this here, so I can just do the normal check on it again and see if the what's happening. So now I can check and see if the task query here, okay, if the task query is if it was successful here, then I can call the while and then loop through the table the row that gets returned, so row, and then I'll do my SQLi fetch what association here, and then I'll put the task query there. Come on. I'll put the task query there. Okay. So now with this one, then we have to get what a variable here. So I'll create a new variable like tax ID, and then I'll make it empty for now. So now when we look through this and then we get something returned to us, then I'm going to say tax ID. Okay, and then I'm going to do row. Okay, and then I'm going to put the ID there because I just need the ID. So tax ID, I assign the ID that I get returned, and then I put it here. Okay, so when I'm done with this one, then that means with this tax ID, I can now add it to the resource array. Let's say resource. Okay, I mean this one, the one that we return, and then I will say the tax ID here, and then I'll put in the tax ID. Tax ID, yeah. You get a point. So now this code must go inside here, must go inside the if. Okay, and if it fails, we can also write a simple message here and say let's just copy this, adding tax field. Okay, so we want to make sure that um let me just change it to what retrieving tax ID field, yeah, field, and then we can say I think that's okay. So we have this, and we can put this there. Okay, yeah. So now this is what I want. So when we push and then it is successful, we will get the ID, tax ID returned to us, and then also a success message to us. Okay. If it fails, okay, when let's say the whole query fails, then the tax ID, adding tax ID will what fail. But then if the adding was successful, but retrieving the tax ID fails, then we will get something like this, so that we know that, oh, the tax ID, we couldn't retrieve the tax ID, but then it was successfully pushed into the database. Okay, so I'll save it, and then I'll check from here. Okay, using um this to check. So I'll say tax, and let's change this back to the title, and then let's change this one to description. Okay, so we come here and then we can say tax return ID just for the title, and then we can put the description here, checking if the tax will return an ID, something like this. So let's send and see. Now when I send, you can see that this has been sent into the database, and then I get an ID return which is 41, and I get the success message which is saying adding tax was successful. So let's see, and you can see we don't have 41 here, so let's refresh and see if you're going to get 41, and then we have it. Okay, so now we have a code that returns what the ID. So let's go back to the code here. Okay, so let me just increase the font. Sorry, this is too much. Yeah, this font is okay. So now we can see that we have the unsubmit here. Let me just reduce this. Okay. Oh, this looks so bad. Okay. So we have the unsubmit here. We send, and then we can push this into the task. Okay. We can also we can, what we can do is we can wait for the tax ID to be returned here. Okay, so for example, let's go back to the scope model. So we can do it in so many ways. So one, we can make sure that instead of returning true and false, we can return what, a map. Okay, because we are also getting a response body here. So let's check here, and then let me close this. Okay, and let's check the response that we get. Let's remove this, we don't need this. I want to just check if the response that we get is okay for us. So I'm trying to add a tax again and say trying tax, or yeah, tax, and then I say we are just trying to save tax. Okay, and then I'm going to click on the check button here, and then it loads. It's loading. Oh yeah, you see the reason why we are still having the alert dialog is because I think we commented the code here. When we go into the tax page, we commented the code, so that's why. Okay, in the last video tutorial, so you can uncomment it and then this will go. But then you can see that we had it, we had 42, okay, as the tax ID. We also have the success message. So this is a map that we get. Okay, so that means we can also create a map here. Let me show you something. We can create a map here, and then we can say string of dynamic here, and then I can say response from PHP, something like this, and then we can make it empty for now. Okay, so when we create this here, we can copy this, and then now we know that we will get a response here, and then this will only return what, success message when it is successful. Let's say the tax ID and then the success message. Okay, so with this one, I will now come here. After this, I'll come paste this here, and then I'll say success. Okay, and then I'll put what, the response body, and I think we can let's see, let me see something, because we have to check very carefully. This is not coming as a list. Okay, so if it is coming as a map here, let me check something, because this is quite different from, I think I can access it this way. Let's see what happens, and I can't access it this way. um This is not the way I'm supposed to access it. So let's see. I think that, let me see something. Okay, so if we can't get this way, let's just go ahead and look through first. Let's say let me just copy a code at the top there where we change everything into JSON. Okay, so we have this. Okay, we decode the body. Okay, and then come into the code here. Where is the code? Where is the code? Add tags. Okay, so we have the add tags here. Now we want to just put this one here. So we want the response decoded, and then we can decode it here. Now we can also loop through the response decoded, response decoded, and then we can put um yep, I can put the dot for each, and then I can get the element returned to me. But for now, I'll just print to see the kind of data that I'm getting, just to make sure that print. Let's say, let me put the data here, data, and then I'll say print the data and the data, something like that. Save it, and let's see what we get when we return it. So I'll go back, and I'm going to uncomment the code at the page where we, yeah, I'm just going to come uncomment one so that we just stay at the same page. So let's just look at the code here, close this, and then let's click on the check button again to see. Now it was sent, but I'm thinking I'm getting some. Let's see. What's the message I wrote there? It was the data. So let me check if I have the data here. I don't have it. That means it didn't print or something. Okay, it didn't print. Let me quickly write an error message here. Okay, to see if I'm getting an error. There is an error, and then I can put this there. I just want to be sure if I'm getting an error or something, and then I'll press on it again. And let's say there is an error. Let me filter. There is, okay. So you can see it's saying that there's an error. The dynamic is not a subtype of list. Yeah. So we have a map returned to us. Okay. What we get returned to us is a map, is not what a list of dynamic. Okay. So that means we have to change this to, let's say, map and dynamic or something like that. And this time we can't loop through. Okay, but we can just print the decoded message and say what we are actually getting. So perhaps maybe we get an error again, and I can close this and press the button again, check, and I'm not getting anything returned to me. I'm not getting anything in the debug code. So let's press again and see. And this time I'm not getting, oh, okay, I'm getting something, but I was checking if there's an error. So we get a response. Let me just add a text to it so that I can just filter quickly. There's response, and then I can put this there. Okay, let's try again. And then let me see if I can filter the response. Okay, so now you can see that I'm getting something returned, and then it's what? It's a map. So if it's a map, then we can even just return the map just like that. Okay, so the kind of data that will be returned will depend on what your PHP API. Okay, so like I said before, this is a simple API, so you don't have to do this. But when, let's say, you design a Node.js API, okay, a huge API, the response you get may be different. Okay, so you have to always check the response, the kind of response that you are getting, so that you can access it very well. So looking at this is a map. Okay, if this is a map, then there's no need to even create a map here. Okay, you get my point. So there's no need to even create a map here. We can just return the response. directly. So when this is successfully done, what we want to do is now we want to return what? A map here. Let's say response decoded here. So this is the map that we want to return. I can just remove the print statement there. I can remove this line of code. And then this time I want to return what? A map, not a boolean of dynamic. Okay, so this time I'm returning a map here. And if I get an error too, I'm also going to get what? A map returned to me. But then this map will be here. I don't have access to this map, okay? So it's either we can define a map variable here, okay, so that we assign the what um the response to it and do something, but we can just ignore that one. We can just put um define a map somewhere here. Let me see. We can quickly define a map here. Map dynamic, and then do something like fill map, something like this. You can name it in a name that you want. Fill map here. And then this fill map here, I know that when it fails, I just want to say error, okay, and then I say adding tags was not successful, okay. You should know that this one is different from the one that will be returned, okay. So there's no put, okay. Adding tags was not successful, and I will return what fill map here, okay. So we get an error here. You see, when we go into this, okay, into this, we are having different response from the database, okay. So no matter what, whether it fails or it works, okay, we are going to get the response and we will pass it back to what the tax page, okay. But what we are doing here is different. This is when maybe let's say the internet is not working and then we get an error, okay. So we are defining our own error here, which is different from what will be returned from what the database. Okay, so I will save it again, and then this time I'll go back to the tax page, okay. And this is where we do what? We add a tax and then we await. So we can now create what we can now be specific that this what is coming from the as a response is what is a map. So dynamic, and then we can put this one there. So we instead of saying if it's true or false, okay, how can we tell that this was successful? Okay, we can only tell that this was successful by checking if the response, okay, has success, okay, because we have this and then we can see success here, we can see error here. Let me quickly change something from the to do scope. Let me change it into error into small letters, okay. Now, when I save it, I come back here. So we want to see if the response contain what a success message. If it contains a success message, I just want to print what the tax ID. For now, let me just come here, remove this, and then paste this one here and say tax ID. Let me just quickly add a message to it so that I can filter from the back console. So the tax ID returned, and we can put it in here. You get my point here. So we check the response if it's success, and then we can also check if else if the response that we get, okay, oh sorry, the response that we get, we have what error. If we have error, then we can also print the error message that we are getting, okay. So we can say now print, let's say error, oh sorry, the error, and then we can put this one there, okay. So response, and then we can put the everything there. So now when I save it, let's run our code and see what we are going to get in the debug console. So I'll remove this and then I'll clear everything. So let's try again. Let me show the screen. So I'm going to click on it again and see what I get in return. And I'm getting an error. So this is saying the type string is not a subset of what boolean. Okay, type string is not a subtype of boolean. Okay, yep. The reason is because the error that we are getting is, it means that you see the success is will return what a success message, like I'm coming. What is returning is what a string. Okay, so what I can do is let's see. We can't check it this way here. If success, okay. So let me see something. What did we do? Okay, we put success here. Okay. So what I want to do in the database now here is to change this to true. Sorry, true. And then I want to add another thing here. Let's say message instead. Okay. So this will be the message, and then I'll say adding tax was successful, something like this. Okay, and then I'll do a similar thing for here, which saying error, and then I'll change this to what false, because I want to make sure that I can just do if success, and then I can just go ahead with what I want to do. So I want this one, and then this time I'll copy this line of code here, and then I'll put this one here and say adding task was unsuccessful. Okay, so when I do this, and then I think, what again do I have to do here for now? Okay, another one is here, and then I'll put it here. Adding, okay, adding tax ID. Um, adding tax. What was the message? I don't even remember, but anyway, adding tax was successful. Okay, I think adding tax was successful, and then adding tax was successful. Adding tax was successful. This was retrieving. Yeah, this message was retrieving. Sorry, retrieving tax ID was unsuccessful. Yeah. And then here is rather adding tax was unsuccessful. And then the response or the error should be what? False. So this is the thing that we are going to return. So let's go into the scope model and see if there's anything that we are doing. Okay, I think that's okay for now. And then if this one too, you have to change this one to what? False. Oh, sorry, let me just quickly copy it instead of just deleting false, and then I can put what message here. So this message, we can say we can just even put something meaningful here. Say let's say adding fail. Okay, check your internet connection, something like that, because I know that without your internet it will fail. Okay, so we can do something like this, and then I will save it. I think I'll come back here into the tax page here. So now let's try this again and see if you are going to get that error again. So I'll open the debug console here, and then I'll clear this one here, and then let's run again and see. And then this time we didn't get the exception that we had before. So I want to see if the tax ID was returned. So I'll just copy this and then filter from the debug console if it returned. Okay, so now you can see that the tax ID that was returned was what, 49, and then we didn't get any error. The loading indicator just went off, so that's okay. So that's awesome. And then we have this. So now that we have the tax ID returned to us, how are we going to push the to-dos into the database? So we know that in the to do scope model. Okay, we have the add to do's here. Okay, and with this add to do's, we already have the code to push it into the database. So we can how do we say, we can just decide to call this thing many times. Okay, so we know that we just need what, a title, and then push it into the database. Okay, yep, we can just put the it in a map, and then we can send it, and then we can look through. That's okay. So let's just go back into the I just have some commented codes here, I don't need them. So here, now when we send this, we get a message returned to us that success is true. Here we get these to pop the circular indicator off the screen, and then we have the print statement, which I don't need here. So now if this is success, then that means I have access to what, the tax ID. So I can put the tax ID here, and then I can say response. Okay, and then I say tax ID. Okay, so that's one way that we can let me just bring it down here. So after popping it off, no, just put it there. Okay, because I want to do everything before I pop off the thing from the screen. So now with this one here, I have this thing here, but this means that I need access to do what? Add the to do based on what I have here. So I can also accept that function, like function add to do's. Okay. And then when I go up to where the thing is, I will just pass in the model for the what, add to do's. And you don't have to call it. Okay. So we have this one now. And then I can come down here, and then I have this again. I can now pop it off. Okay, pop this final tax ID response, and then I have the tax ID here. So now we have to, we assess the, we get the what the add to do's here. We can go ahead and then add a what, we can go ahead, create a map, let's say map, then string dynamic here, and then we are going to say to do to go into the database. Okay, so I'm naming it to do, and I can put this one here and say ID, oh sorry, tax ID, and then this tax ID will be what, the tax ID we just created, and then we can have the to do info, and then we are going to say to do info will be what. Now you know that the to do that we are pushing, we push it into what, a list. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to access the to do's and then say I want the first one. That's all. I think it's to do not with an underscore. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's to do info. Sorry. So now I'm just accessing one here for now. So I'm just accessing the first element that we will have inside. Okay, just for demo purpose, and then see what will happen. And then this time too, I can do what? Await add to do's. Okay, and then I can push in what to do here. I can wait for the response. Okay, for now we know that the response is true or false. So final response, and then we can await. We can make sure that we get it as true or false. Okay, let's change this to, let's say, final to do response, because it's conflicting with the response at the top there. And then we can say final boolean, because we know that it's true here. So if this was successful, we just want to also print a message. Let's say now we have to copy this into sorry, if to do response, that means it went through, and then we can now copy this code here. If only this is true, that's when we want to pop it out. Okay, and then we can now say what again, print pushing the first to do was successful. Okay, for now, that's what we are going to do. So let's see, we have this, okay, called trying tax. Okay, and then I'm going to add a simple to do here. Let's say I'm going to add someone push, and then I add another one. Let's say another as the to do or the to do items. So now when I click on this, I expect this someone and then the information to go into the database. Let's open here and see if we are going to get error. So I'm just I want to just make sure before. So now I'll press on it, and then it went inside. Say pushing first to do was what successful. Okay, so let's go back here, click on the to do's, and then we can see someone is here. Okay, and it's having a what, a tax ID of what, 50. Okay, it's having a tax ID of what, 50. And then when we come into the tax, okay, we can see, let's click on it again, and I'm not seeing the thing being pushed. I'm not seeing tax of 50. Let's just go, I think it's supposed to be here. Okay, so now I'm seeing it here, 50, and then it's saying try tax. We are just trying to save into our database. So you can see that for now this is working. So when we come back into the next video tutorial, I think this one is very long now, almost 41 minutes. So when we come back, okay, I think we can just find a way to make sure that we push every list of to do that we have into the database. Okay, so this time we are just pushing only one and it's not good, but then we will find a way to push all the to do's inside. Okay, so I think I should leave the video here. Yep, so I'll leave the video here and then I will see you guys in the next video tutorial.